Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, a month-long event celebrating the authors and narrators that bring romance stories to life. Listen along as Viviana, Enchantress of Books, interviews your favorite writers and voices, shares special guest posts, and stay tuned for some special information at the conclusion of the episode.
Hi, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with author Michelle Karise. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, Michelle. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started. And also about your last name, because that is one, I love that last name.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. I'll start with the origins of my last name. So it's Michelle Karise, and I was supposed to have been named for my siblings. So I have a brother who's Michael, and Michelle is the feminine form of Michael. And I have two sisters, Karen and Denise. So it's a concatenation of their names, right? But what happened was I was born in the time when the fathers give the information for the birth certificate, and somehow, some way, my dad completely fouled it up. So Karise is not my middle name. I have a different middle name. so that's the story.
Okay.
So in terms of just background of how long I've been writing, I am an extreme newbie from the writing front. I started writing in 2017, and I started with writing 50 Shades of Grey fan fiction. And of course, I'm not the person who ever does anything halfway. Like I go from 0 to 100 at all times. I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And everyone was like, yeah, right. Oh, I'm so sure you're going to write a book. I'm like, no, I'm going to write a book. And what happened was there's this book by Shonda Rhimes called The Year of Yes. And it's really this thought that anytime someone asks you to do something that may be outside of your comfort zone, then you say yes, and you challenge yourself to move beyond these self-imposed boundaries. And so as a part of kind of my attempt to grow, I started writing books. And it really, really helped me because I work in technology. The only thing that I write are like system requirements, and I was speaking in very technology based syntax, right? And it was impacting not only just how I was performing on my job, but also in my personal life. So I set out and set a goal for myself to write a book and to teach myself how to write. And so what came out of this was really just this tremendous amount of growth in 3 years. Like 3 years ago, there's no way would I have ever thought that I would have something interesting to say in a podcast, but yet here we are. Here we are. So that's the long-winded story of how I became an author.
Yeah. Well, I can totally understand the not being able to do anything half-assed because I am that girl as well. It's become something where I'm like, do not start any new hobbies. Do not start any hobbies. Because now it's no longer a hobby, it becomes a business.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. No. you know, don't start this because now it's like, 10 groups later. But yeah, no, it's I totally understand that. But that is so awesome that you decided to get out of that comfort zone and say yes to everything. It's so scary
Mhm,
though. Oh my God, that
mhm,
is so scary.
mhm.
So much so that I think I'm going to pick up that book just to read it.
No, it's a really good book. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like I can truly say that that year that I read that book and I did that challenge, like my life changed for the better. Like I found myself speaking at professional conferences and I finally had an interesting answer to the question, so what is it that you like to do? Right?
Yes. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Like, which one do you want? Do you want what I really am thinking or what you think you want me to
Yes,
say?
exactly. Exactly.
hmm Well, that
Mhm.
is awesome. And it is very difficult to get out of those comfort zones and
Mhm.
to believe in yourself. And because we are our worst critics,
Mhm.
absolutely our
Mhm.
worst critics.
Mhm.
And when we get into that mindset of negativity, it's hard to get out of. So I
Mhm.
am glad that you kicked that concept to the curb. And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the books that you've written thus far have been within the contemporary romance genre. What is it about that genre specifically that you like so much that you've written in it so far?
Well, I like the idea that I'm writing something that could potentially mirror someone's life. Um, I really started writing so that I could see myself in a book. And so that's really the reason I did contemporary, even though I have love for all genres of romance, especially historical.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I'm ready for writing historical romances, right?
Oh no, knowing you and how you don't have ass at that point, you're going to be like traveling abroad and figuring out the corset concept and how that's going to happen. Yeah, no. I mean, it is a business expense if that helps.
Yes, I am well aware of that.
That is awesome. Yeah. Um, so within that question of the subgenres and romance itself, because there are so many, aside from the historical side, are you thinking that maybe you'll, dive into any of the other genres that are out there, whether it's a paranormal, again, historical or anything else like that in the near future, or you're going to be like just holding off for it right now?
So I've been kicking around the idea of coming up with a pen name and doing some urban romance.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So it's something I've been thinking about quite a bit lately. But I think that one would that would be an interesting challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really thinking through that and trying to come up with ideas of stories, of characters, and so that's something that interests me a lot.
Right now, the books that you have, it's usually one of the characters is African American, correct? At
That
least.
is correct.
Yes,
Yes.
girl.
So and typically it's the woman.
Yeah.
So I currently I've been writing in the multicultural interracial genre,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to write stories featuring Black heroines.
Yeah.
That was extremely important to me, because there are so many books out. There's a lack of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Strong,
I
important,
wanted,
independent women.
yeah, and that was the thing, is I wanted to write stories about characters that I related to, and I wanted them to be I had this idea, like I want to see Black women fall in love, and I want them to be like me, and I want I want them to be funny. I want quirky. I want insecure. Because I feel like, there's this belief that all Black women, we have to be super strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm very, very strong. Sometimes I'm not, right? And I just feel that it's important to show both sides of that. That, I have emotions and I have feelings, and my feelings get hurt. So that was the reason why I really write in that genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have, as women, period, we have a lot of things in common. And I think nowadays there is that sense of us having to be stronger and things like that. And even this double standards where if we are tough and we're looked at as being bossy if we're telling people what to do. And I'm like, well, okay, well, he does it and he's being a manager, but I do it, I'm being bossy. Okay. So I love seeing women in positions of like the CEOs and just portraying these strong individuals, but that also, again, have emotion. Like you were saying, I mean, we have our good moments just like any other character and individuals. We have our strong moments and we have our, moments of weaknesses. It's just how we get up that counts.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, these are great characters that you're writing. So I appreciate that. Thank you for doing
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. Where do you get the ideas for the stories and the plots and all this fun stuff?
Gosh. So the plots, like, okay, so for Candy's Crush, that was something that had just popped into my head. It was a Martin Luther King weekend. And I was like, I want to write a story. And I read an article about there's this cleaning company in Detroit that services only, the Detroit city proper, in places and areas where they were having difficulties getting cleaning companies to come in and service the homes, right? So I was like, that's pretty interesting. I was like, that's cool. That's a cool business, right?
Yeah.
And so my mind just kind of wandered, like, okay, so I wonder what that person would be. And what if there was a daughter and she was extremely innocent and she knew this super rich guy? Like, what would that look like? And that's kind of where Candy's Crush came in. So that's kind of where that idea came from. Okay. And so the second book that I wrote, it's a work thing. That one came from, I was working at a company that was going public. So it was, And then another thing, I'm really, really huge on reading like business journals and like CEO gossip kind of stories. And so I had read some things about the CEO of a company called WeWork. And I was like, ooh, well, he sounds like a monster to work for. Maybe I'll add that to the book. So that's where that concept came from. And so awesome. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying that's awesome how these ideas are just like answering these, like, what would happen? And, oh, what about this? And oh, okay.
Yeah, no, and that's pretty much the way it happens too. And so I have a book that comes out on the 18th of May. And this is an interesting book because this book I was supposed to go on my dream trip to Italy right as the pandemic struck. So I had to cancel everything with the dream trip, right? So I was thinking, ooh, what if I wrote a story about a character who went to Italy and she met this really, really, really hot older guy?
Ooh.
Huh. Yeah. So, so I wrote his little star, and it's a novella. So I had fun with that book.
Okay. I'm just going May 18th, adding to calendar. So is he Italian?
He is Italian. He is
Oh,
Italian
nice.
native. His name is Matteo. And I wanted him, it was kind of like I didn't have enough words. You know, when you're doing a novella, you can't really do like a huge like character arc and subplots and everything. So I definitely wanted to, at first I was thinking I would do like a daddy kind of story, but then that, yeah. So then
that's a kink.
That's a kink, right?
Yep.
And one day I'm going to go there.
Okay.
But for this book, I ended up just making him an alpha gentleman. So yeah, I really love this book.
Yeah. How much is the age gap? Because that's the other thing that people from
the age gap on this one is 20 years. But I feel like the character, the heroine, I feel like she's kind of an old soul herself, right? And whereas he feels young to me. So it makes sense. And I was like, do I characterize this as an age gap book? Because to me, when I think of age gap, I'm thinking like 19 and 33 and up, right?
Yeah.
So
it is funny how we all have different ideas about some of these tropes and what they truly mean, and even some of the genres themselves. But like for me, age gap, honestly, it's 8 years plus difference. Because I think that's usually where there is a big shift. It's almost like at the end of the day, when you're 15 and he's 20, it's a huge age difference. It's only 5 years. It's only 5 years. But because of mentally where we're at now, fast forward and she's 20 and he's 25, that's not that big of a deal. But as they start getting, that gap keeps growing. So that's where I say about 8 years tends to be a bit more, and then above everything. I remember like my parents had a 15-year difference in age.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And nowadays we're getting, we're holding off on getting married. So people are older, or they're younger. There's so many different things. So it's that old soul is definitely one that I can relate to. I was never your typical 20-year-old.
Yeah. And I was just thinking like in terms of when you're 26, like I just felt like when I think of a good age gap book, usually it's some super young, ripe peach of a girl, that's like barely legal. And so that's what I think of when I think of age gap, right? And I really enjoy those books. But it was like, my character, she's got a job. She's working. She's got her own place. Is this really an age gap, or is this just more of an older man and a younger woman, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So, so yeah.
Cool. Well, that sounds very interesting. And I really hope that one day you'll get to go on your trip and you can say, hey, that's where that scene took place. And ooh, that's where that other scene took place. Because that's always fun when you travel and you know where a book is from, or based on. And I know from experience, because there's a couple of books from in New Orleans. And so I was like, oh, that's the corner. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're always fun. So hopefully one day you'll get there, and then I'll go one day in Italy and say, "Ooh, that's where Michelle wrote that book about." Okay, that's what it is. Yay! Send you
Uh-huh.
photos saying, "Look where I'm at." So we have all these different scenes in a book. You know, the first meeting, the that first tension, their first fight, whatever breaks them up, things like that. Even the sex are all these different scenes. What type of scene do you love to write the most? Like, what is your why are you laughing? This is gonna be good.
Because I think the people who know me most,
Mhm.
they're like, they already know how I'm going to answer this. But I love writing sex scenes. I love it. And
Love how you said that.
so some of the feedback has been, the sex scenes are well written, right? They're like super long and well written. Well, I really enjoy writing that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. which is rare, because usually for some reason it's the opposite. People that a lot of the authors are like, "Oh, I will insert sex scene here," and then they move on, and I'm going, "Okay,
I know several people who are like that. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Right?
you're right."
Like, because I don't have any, like, I'm writing a book right now,
Mhm.
and I already have in my head how the sex scenes are going to go down. So before, I haven't even like finished plotting out the book, but the sex scenes are already in my head. So I enjoy that.
Mhm.
Um, the one thing that I'm learning about writing sex scenes, it's not so much about the act itself. Because if you focus it on just the act, insert A into B,
Mhm.
and maybe, swirl your tongue around C, like when you do that, it can become boring and monotonous, right?
Yep.
So for me, I try to focus more on the emotions that come from these romantic entanglements, right? um, so that's what I enjoy. It's more about the emotions, and I am a little bit shy about um, extremely explicit sex scenes. Like, there are some people who do it wonderfully, and when you read their books, it's like I'm blushing, my ears are hot, like that kind of. But I don't know if that wouldn't feel organic to me. So I write more about the emotions and how the characters grow together through the sex scenes.
Mhm. That is a very good point, because I know that's unfortunately the romance genre, aka also known as, you know, the how do they call it? Porn, romance and things like
Mommy
that.
porn,
Yeah,
mom
mommy porn.
porn.
I hate that term.
I do too.
And yeah, and I know that there's erotica, which is
Mhm,
significantly more sexual and more
mhm,
explicit. And then
mhm,
there's erotic romance, which means the
mhm,
sex scenes are more descriptive, but still not erotica.
mhm,
But I think it's important that those conversations about the sexuality and the acts and the consent, as well as
mhm,
what's important to both partners, is had. And when it comes down to these scenes being written, very similar to you, it's I don't need to have the instructions of where, part A goes into part B, because sex ed. There's some basic things that most of us now look, there's when there's different things going on where you're going, "Ooh, that sounds good." A lot of times that I things that I've highlighted haven't been those acts, but maybe something that was said,
mhm,
or the
mhm.
timing and things like that. So having a good written sex scenes that is not considered a filler, because unfortunately that happens too,
Yeah.
is important. I'm like, no, really, they were just talking.
Or they're talking while they are
Yeah.
engaging in coitus,
Yes.
as children would say, right?
Ooh, are you a Big Bang Theory fan?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I love that
Yeah,
show.
I
Love
am.
it.
I am. I really am.
Yeah,
They make me laugh.
that is so fun. And it's one of those where I'm like, I really wish I would have just to mess with the characters, have them be like go to a romance conference. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh, Sheldon.
Oh.
Like Wallowitz would be all over it, right?
Yes, he would be like, oh,
but Sheldon would be like demoralized by it. So yeah. No.
Well, and one of the probably, like you said, there will be like, look, they come with instruction manuals. I'm like, that's a book. It's a romance book. You can view it as an instruction manual by all means.
That's funny.
And the girls would be a hoot there.
Oh yeah, Penny would be all over it. But,
oh yes. Oh goodness gracious! See, that would have been a fun one. See, now you kind of have to like write that out.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So, if the sex scenes are the ones that you have the easiest and most fun writing, what is the opposite as far as the most difficult scenes for you to write?
Ooh. I think. Well, I do well with the epilogues too because I really like it. I think the parts that I struggle with are more so the what goes between the meeting and the sex, right? Yeah, those activities that occur within the first time they meet and the sex, that's the hard time because sometimes I'm like, well, why can't they? They just met, but why can't they? And the editor's like, no, you can't do that, Michelle. No. But it happens in real life. No, Michelle, you cannot do that. So that's where that's what takes me the longest, right? Mm-hmm. It's how long do I want these two people who are obviously attracted to each other? How long do I want to make them suffer before they release tension?
Got it. So we know that you would never write a slow burn then.
I have written a slow burn. I felt like Candy's Crush was a slow burn.
Okay.
And so the funny thing about that was that, I had a friend who is an innocent who walked through the outline with me. And she goes, no. And I'm like, well, why not? Right? Mm-hmm. Why not at this point in the relationship would we take, why wouldn't we take the panties off here? Right. And she's like, no, that's just not realistic. So yeah, I would say that the Candy's Crush book is a slow burn. Yeah.
Okay. Again, that's one of those definitions where people are like, that's a slow burn, and that wasn't. It's everybody kind of has where their gauge is.
Yes. And I felt that it was appropriate. But depending on what you're used to, some people may find it a slow burn, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I say it's usually, I'm like, it's so one of the reasons why I love romance is there's such a variety. And even when we think this is one and like, no, well, actually it falls into that category too. I'm like, really? And then you have those conversations and you're going, I didn't think of it that way. So that's great that, conversation pieces, I always say. So now that you've written a few books, you may have realized that we also fall in love with the secondary characters. And we're like, so when are they getting a book? You've been through that already, right?
I have been through that already, right?
Yeah.
So there are several secondary characters in books that I've written that I would absolutely love to write stories about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Candy, in Candy's Crush, she has like this group of girlfriends. I would love to write stories about them. In the second book, It's a Work Thing. The main character, Jasmine, she has her work bestie,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love to write a story about her. But I think what happens is I don't know if I have the patience to stick with the series. Mm-hmm. And I, like, when I'm right now, I can tell you, I have outlines for 4 books, completely standalone books, no ties to any of the previous books I've written. And I just get bored with it, I think.
Well, there's a lot of work that involves too when you're doing a series. The consistency, the continuity, the the why is he now Prince Charming when he was such a dickhead, and all that stuff that you kind of have to, and then of course locations. I thought you said that you were here versus there. So I totally understand, that whole idea of just starting from scratch.
and I like envy, maybe not envy, but I admire authors who were able to stick with it. And another thing, I think, when it comes to my writing style or inspiration for writing, it's really more about, like, if I find a cool image on one of the stock sites, and that can kick me into something else, like a new book, right?
Yep.
And so and chances are the image that I pick on the stock site does not match any of the descriptions for any of the other characters that I've written.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
It is frustrating. That's a whole nother story.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. I love the concept of the stock sites and everything, but sometimes like they need to get their tags really better, because
yes.
I was looking for one thing and I found something else. I'll send you the photo. But that was not what I was looking for. It's like way off. And then of course the diversity and all that stuff that you're trying to look for is really hard sometimes. Yeah, I get it. But I love it when the author is really enthusiastic about the story versus feeling that they have to write it because someone wants it. Some authors are great at giving us everything we want, and they love doing it, but we can also sometimes tell when you're okay, fine, you made it, we made you do it, okay, and that's not a good feeling either, from a reader's perspective, or you guys to have to feel like you're forced to write it because we want it.
And that's one thing that I always try to do, is I always try to write stories featuring subjects and characters that I love. And I can honestly say that every single book, even the characters that I hate when I read the book, I pretty much love them. It's like I really, if it's something that I enjoy reading, then that's what I want to release.
Yeah, it's you're a fan of the genre and the concept as well, so that's important. Yeah. So of all the characters that you've written so far, that you've created, is there one that you connect with the most, and why?
Yes, I connect the most with, there's a character, the main character, her name is Jasmine Carmichael, and she's in It's a Work Thing. I connect with her the most. She is an IT consultant who travels for work. She works in kind of that cybersecurity space.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I connect the most. And for the sake of complete honesty,
Mm-hmm.
that story probably was my own bit of fan fiction because it happened when I was at work, and not it happens, but I was writing and thinking and plotting this book
Mm-hmm.
when I was in the midst of a security breach. So I was leading this effort to kick the bad guys out of a company's network, right?
Yeah.
So I was stuck in this room with all of these like certified hackers, ethical hackers who, when you're stuck in a room with a door, no window, and
those command centers are horrible. That's what we call them, command centers.
Yes, command centers. And I was the only woman in a room filled with all of this male testosterone, right?
However, did you survive?
I you know what? It was like I think I was on Twitter or somewhere, and I kept writing like day 3, I'm beginning to identify with and it was just, I was like total, like developing crushes on people, and I'm like, what is going on here? So that's where that book came from.
Yeah. Oh, our wonderful work husbands.
Work husbands, yes. And I always, I can always get a work husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's so funny.
Mm-hmm. It's the other ones that are always a pain in the butt.
I know, right?
Yeah. At least with work, we're done. Yeah, I can understand some of that IT stuff when the day job, one of the clients that I had was the IT department. And so I know all too well about those lovely command centers where they will get a conference room. And of course, it's in the middle of the building. So there are no windows. There's a bunch of screens. And all you hear is because you are on the computer. And you're looking and going, I just want a donut.
And what they did, this is so funny. And what they did is they brought in all of these guys with these Southern accents, right? Who were not from my area, which to me just made them all the more interesting, right?
Absolutely.
Because, someone had like, he had like a Cajun accent. And I was like, oh, wow. He's kind of cute, right? And so, then reason kicked in, and it's like, oh, okay. So
dang it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have so many potential there. You have, you could do a romantic suspense concept there where you're, saving the world, and you have the office romance as well.
I know. I probably should use some of that and write another plot outline, right?
Yeah.
like I need more of those.
That's what you all say, okay? I don't feel bad for you anymore. After years of doing this, I know it. You guys are always plotting. There's a reason why that cup exists that says, don't piss off an author. They will add you as a character and kill you off. It's because you guys do that. But you're always plotting, and that's why you people watch. And it's a fun gig when if you do it, all these potential ideas that we can come up with, and then you're writing it out. But I mean, hacking and bringing in these ethical hackers, they're doing it for a good cause, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, the plots that could develop out of those.
I know.
So now we're going into the whole concept of, you've written the stories, they're in paperback and ebooks and stuff like that, but you're like, hey, let's have it in audio. How did that come about?
Ooh, so last year I was in a rut. Just the pandemic. I was just really in a state of uncertainty. I started a new job, which came along with some pretty high certification things that I had to go through. So I wasn't writing anything. And so I was like, okay, so since I'm not writing, what can I do, to bring in some revenue, right? So I chose an audiobook, and the process itself was almost too perfect, right? So the narrators are Lacey Laurel and Connor Craig. And for me, when I heard the voices, like it just made sense. So I went ahead and jumped into the audiobook world.
And never looked back.
And never looked back.
So Connor Craze is a bit of a, now he's been doing this for almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's relatively about this time last year he was a guest, and it was, he had only had a couple of books out, and then things exploded, which is a good thing in this case.
Yeah.
How did you cast him, or had you heard him before? Same thing with Lacey. How does that go about for you?
So I posted the script out on ACX, which is Amazon's exchange, where you can find narrators. So I posted the script for Candy's Crush on that site. Lacey read for it. I felt that her voice was perfect for the heroine, Candy. And she said, I know someone who does a really fabulous Southern accent. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'd like to listen to him, right? And when I heard him, it was me and my mother. We were in the room together, and he read like the first 2 sentences, and my mother goes, "He's it. Reach out to him. Tell him he's got the job."
Way to go, Mom.
I know. She's very decisive.
I may start calling her then.
And to be honest, it was like, I could not believe what he did. Like, it was incredible. I was like, did I write? Like, I was listening and doing the review. I was like, did I write this?
Yes, you did.
And I was like, he did such an incredible job. And then, it was only supposed to take like 6 or 7 hours to listen to, but it took me like a whole weekend, because I had to take pauses at some parts because it was just a bit too much for me. I was like, I need to breathe and fan myself, right?
I need a moment.
I need a moment.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, he's got a great voice, a very great voice.
He's okay. Just kidding.
Oh, yeah, he's all
right. He's all right. He's going to listen to this and he's going to send me a text like, excuse me? I'm like, what? I ain't saying it. It's fun messing with them. I love it. So now that you have this one in audio, and I know that you're going to be coming out with more because we want them in audio and you love them in audio. Do you see yourself listening to your own books? I mean, you had to listen to this one, but was it like how bad? I think some people, authors, will say it was torturous because they're my words. How was it for you, that experience?
Oh, it was torturous. Like, that's another part of the reason it took me so long, was just because I was so uncomfortable with it. And like, it was over Labor Day weekend when I did the review, and I just kept sending text messages to people. And I was like, I'm really having a hard time with this. I'm like literally sitting underneath the table with my fingers in my ears, because it was just, I mean, I think what happens is anytime you listen, you through the process of writing and gaining that muscle, you always learn something. With each book, I've learned so much, and I feel like I've grown leaps and bounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I listen back to the old stuff, it's like, I could have done that better. But I think to people who aren't close to it,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have or share that same feeling. Like people love it. People love that book.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, maybe I'm too hard on myself. But yeah, that's the hardest part.
Oh yeah. No.
Just listening, especially when the sex scenes. I'm like, who wrote this? Did I write this?
He's saying what again?
I know. It's like, what? Who is this so smutty girl? So yeah.
Yeah, again, we are our worst critics, and
We are.
that's also why it's important to have that group of individuals that will tell you, yes, it's great because it is, and also will tell you, girl, I love you, but you gotta work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's important too to have those individuals that are honest with you and not, put you, help you set up for, success, not for failure.
That is so important.
Yeah.
And, sometimes that's incredibly difficult to come by, to find that level of honesty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it's very rare. Unfortunately, it's very rare. And there is also a level of self-awareness of not being jealous for that person and being envious of their success. And that it's okay to have that moment of like, oh man, why not me? But then dumping it and moving on and having those conversations. I also find it very helpful to come up with a code. So when I say to someone, I love you, that means that that's code for mentally prepare yourself. I'm going to say something that you may not like.
Yeah.
But I love you, so I'm going to tell you because no one else will.
Yeah. And you know what? I've heard that phrase before. I've said that phrase before. So I am no stranger to that.
Yeah, it's important, a lot of things, but even with the heroes and the heroines, we get mad at them when we're reading or listening to the story, because if they would have just told each other, if they would have just talked, if they would have just communicated, granted, we probably wouldn't be having the story, but anyways, it would have not have been that bad. 10 years would not have been wasted or whatever. But yeah, so I think even in life, it's important to have those individuals. Again, hard to come by. But when you find them, treasure them. Still looking for mine. But yeah, so that is a very good, you had a great entry into the audiobook world. People were loving your stories. The narrators were phenomenal. And that's one book right now. Are you planning on getting more of your books in audio?
Yes.
Do tell.
I would love to get the Italian book, His Little Star. I would love to get that one in audiobook. I think now I have enough armor and calluses on me to where I could actually listen to that one for my own personal reading or listening pleasure. So I really want to do that one in audio.
Cool.
And that's something, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
And that's something that, I'm looking into and exploring right now.
Awesome. Do you find yourself now writing more for audio perspective than typical writing? Because I know there's a difference sometimes,
There is a difference. So one thing I had to do with Candy's Crush before we even began to recording was I had to send it to someone to do like proofreading, and we cut so many like fillers and all of those things out of the text. And what I learned there is I learned a huge lesson with that. So I do write now for audiobook. Lesson learned.
Makes it easier for later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But these stories that you're writing, do you kind of like have voices in mind as far as the narrators that now when you're writing it in that person's POV that you hear them, or is that not there yet?
No, I have very distinct voices in mind when I'm writing.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I won't put you on the spot and ask you what they are.
So, I mean, I think, so the heroine, her name is Naomi. She's really, really smart. She's a little bit sassy. She's from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely like that voice, a more mature, not a youthful voice, but just a mature voice.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, he has to have a very, very sexy Italian accent.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? From a listener perspective, when we are told that the character is from New York, or they're from they're from New Orleans and they have the accent, or they're from Italy, fill in the blanks location, there's an accent there. And then we listen and we're like, we're gonna hear an accent, we're gonna hear where is it?
Yeah.
It happens, but
with Candy's Crush, like that one, you can do like a Yat type of accent for a New Orleanian. Uptown has a certain accent, and each section of the city has a different accent, right? But it's also, you have to make it where someone who is unfamiliar, it can't be too deep into the accents. You have to make it a little bit more, I guess, for lack of a better term, standardized,
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, I don't really foresee the character as having, a super Cajun accent. So I think let's just make it a standard Southern accent, maybe put some inflections on some of the words, but not too deep into it, right?
Yeah, no, it totally works that way too. I think that sometimes the narrators, when they get that input from the author, is great. And I believe that the authors are getting a lot better at providing those important notes to the narrators before they start recording. It's a lot helpful from a timing perspective. Because it's when that disconnect of when one of the narrators does the accent and the other one does not, or there is no accent at all. And I'm going, I thought y'all said he was Southern. So those are where those disconnects sometimes happen, and it could really take you out of the book. And that's so that's all, again, all about the conversation that one has, and having the narrators and the authors work together from that perspective. It's important. But yeah. Let's see, where are we? Sorry. Talking with my hands, and I looked away and I'm like, where the hell did I leave off? There it is. It's the Italian. Sorry, I talk with my hands.
Okay, yeah.
Good thing I don't do this is why I don't do videos.
I would be a mess on video.
Yeah, no. I'd be worried about my hair. Like if it's standing up or I'm in one corner, and it'd be like, no, that's not a visual tick that I need right now. When you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Okay, what do I do for fun? So at a different time in our lives, I was an avid traveler. I have a formula for what makes me happy in terms of the experiences I have to have during the year. So I know I have to take at least one international trip a year. I have to see the beach once a year. Like, I have to have that vitamin C. I like to take small junkets to, I'm not very far from Chicago. So we usually drive to Chicago a couple of times of the year. And I have to go to Vegas at least once a year. so that's one part of it. Is I really enjoy travel. Another thing that brings me a lot of joy is I'm one of those Peloton riders. So I enjoy riding the bike. I'm trying to think what else. What else do I like to do? I enjoy like home decorating, like all things related to HGTV. I love it. And I also like to spend a lot of time with my family and my friends and drink. I enjoy a good cocktail.
Ooh, what's your favorite cocktail?
Ooh, I love mojitos. Yeah, I like that. That ginger beer. Well, that's not the mojitos. Wait a minute, scratch that. Not the ginger beer. That's the other one, the Moscow mules. So I like those too.
Do you find yourself that you're more of a cocktail girl, or that you're doing more of the beers or the wines?
I am a cocktail girl. I rarely drink beer. The only time I drink beer is like a Corona with like chips and guac. So that's the only time I really drink beer. And wine, I only do that like during the holidays. I'll have glasses of wine with dinner or socially. But if I'm going out, I'm going to get a cocktail.
Okay. And your go-to cocktail, you said, was the mojito.
The mojitos, yes.
Is it the regular kind of mojitos, or do you get more like there's always these fancier different
It's
flavors?
the regular kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to make one of those. I think I have the ingredients to do all that. I have to. Usually I stick with margaritas or Bahama Mamas, and tequila sunrise are my three that I usually go to for. But I'm trying to expand.
And I love margaritas on the rocks, salted rim, and I want like a gigantic one that has like the premium tequila and the I just have to have a big margarita.
Well, then that leaves me like, what's your favorite tequila then?
Favorite is, I like Patron. I got sick off of Cabo Wabo. So I try to avoid that one like the plague, as if it makes a difference, right? But
no, actually it does, surprisingly.
It does?
Yes, there's different types of sugars, and there's different kinds of plants that it comes from, or the areas. And so there's some people that cannot do certain types of margaritas. They love the tequila, excuse me, because of that. So yeah.
Yeah, so I do like the Patron. That's my favorite.
Okay. You're gonna have to try the Milagros one. That's to me my favorite. Plus pretty blue bottle.
Yeah.
But I like it because it's nice and smooth, and it doesn't give you that bit of that aftertaste that some of the tequilas can do sometimes, where you're going, yeah, afterwards. Ugh. Yeah, no, that doesn't have that. And so that means you gotta be careful with it. But but yeah, you should try that one day. And I'll look into making a burger, and I'll look to make a mojito, and then I'll post it on there. See, Michelle, what you did. That is a great formula that you have for travel, that what makes you happy, you said, right? How did you come up with that?
I just feel like, well, first of all, like I spend more time, if we're going international, I spend a lot of time in like museums. So that kind of quenches the thirst for knowledge. But if I really truly want to relax, there's nothing like the sound of the waves hitting the shore. And so after a beach vacation, I just feel like huge weights are lifted from my shoulders. Like it's really a true relaxation.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to do that kind of like assessment and say what will make us, well, what's that formula that's going to make us happy for the year, and stick with it. I want to add that to my list of things to do. It was a good idea. If you could have any animal, so not just domesticated, but any animal as a pet, what would it be and why?
It would be a dog. I am a dog lover. I growing up, I always wanted to have a dog, and I never got one. And so when I became an adult, I got my first dog, and I went to the rescue place. And, you know, you've heard the phrase, he was the one who rescued me.
Yep.
So I got my first dog, and the best, he is the most chill dog there ever is. He is extremely quiet. He's a little bit stubborn, but I like that about him. His name is Rooney. And it's just, that's my favorite animal. I'm also the local dog catcher. So like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I saw this cute little bitty dog just walking along the sidewalk. And so of course I went to the neighborhood app or whatever it's called, and I found out that my neighbor across the street had lost her dog. So it became my newest project to help her find her dog. And we were successful. He was in like the woods that back my house. He was back in there. So we got him.
That's good. That's nice. That's a happy ending that we need to have more of. No, I can relate. Again, the doggies are always like, hey, babe, I'm going, I already have 5. I can't take another one.
Yes, I know.
No, exactly. Dogs are great pets. I mean, they're great companions and stuff like that. I know that some people like to do I would always say maybe like a Black Panther or a cheetah. I tend to go more for the exotic cats, you know.
Yeah.
But because they can be in the house. Otherwise, it'd be a dolphin, and but then that's more requirements.
Yeah, I'm not that interesting.
Hey, there are so many varieties of dogs, and they each have their own personality that sticks to the breed and does not stick to the breed. And that in itself is entertaining. And when you find one that just saves you, that is all that you need, So, but it's, it's a good question, and I like getting the answers, and it says a lot. Speaking of those kind of questions that says a lot, what's your favorite word?
Ooh. Shit.
Well, I was gonna ask you what your favorite curse word is.
Yeah, my favorite curse word is shit.
Okay.
Because I can add shit to any word. Like I'm a huge, like I will say, oh, that's just some old goofy shit, or that's some dumb shit, or that's some fucked up shit, so I can always come up with like a way to make shit much more interesting. But my favorite word is cake. Cake is very important.
Okay.
So yeah.
Do you have any particular kind of cake that you prefer to?
So cake? I know it's just cake.
Cake.
I like cake, like lemon tasting cake. Okay. So yeah, with lemon frosting, lemon filling. I love that. That's probably the only kind of cake that I eat is lemon cake.
Yeah, the sweet with the sour. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I know what to make next time we hang out.
Yeah.
Yep. What song do you have to sing along with when you hear it?
Ooh. And dance. Beyonce's Drunk in Love. No matter where I am, if I hear that song, I'm gonna sing. And then I like that part where she does the surfboard. Like that's one of my favorite parts. So yeah, that song.
Nice. So dance and sing, huh?
Dance and sing.
Regardless of where you're at.
I'm not a great dancer at all, but I do get like an A for effort. So
of course, that's all you do in life, you know, all the effort, that's what counts. It's the effort you put behind it. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that some of your friends might be listening to this and we'll add that song, and then just because I would be that friend that I would add that song to my phone and just be walking around and just start blasting it to just see what you do. Because I am that friend. And then, you know, get the dirty looks and like, well, wait until Baypack. I'm like, it's okay. For the moment, it was fun. Speaking of fun, we have a new game that we're playing with our guests. It's called Two Truths and a Lie, where you, our guest, tells us 3 things about yourself. And we had to figure out which ones are the truth and which is a lie, hence the name. And I like to think that the listeners are playing along with me, and you guys will let us know in the comments how you guys did. So if you're ready to tell us what your 3 things are.
The first one, I went from the kindergarten to the 2nd grade. I visited St. Croix twice. And I am the youngest of 4 kids.
Man, these are all going to be hard. You like to travel, but the key word there is that you've been there twice. And then you have that, you know, we have siblings, but now are you the youngest? And then you're smart, and very possible for a lot of people to go into that skipping into the, you know, kinder to 2nd grade. Man. Okay. I'm going to say that the youngest of 4 kids is a lie.
No.
That's the truth. Okay.
That's the truth.
Okay. So let's see. What else then? Let's see. Visiting St. Croix twice is the lie.
That is correct.
Aha. I was thinking that was it. I should have gone with my gut. See? Got it. See? Okay, cool. So you've been there once at least, or has it been more than once or more than twice?
I've never been, and I want to go so bad.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you even made it more. Look at you, sneaky. Good for you. Yeah. So that's on your list of when all this stuff happens and we're over with for you to travel, right?
Yep. Okay. Definitely.
Cool. And you are the youngest of the 4 then?
I am the youngest of the 4.
Wow.
And I did go, I spent 1 week in kindergarten and was transferred to the 1st grade and then ended up in the 2nd grade. So I was 16 years old when I graduated from high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I know it might have been a little bit tough too because of that age difference. A lot of your friends, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think majority of my my friendships that I had were my age. So I had a couple of friendships in my class, but a majority of my friends were like my age.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend in high school that we were all like 18, 19 senior year, and she was just turning 16. And so when we would try to go places, we're going, oh, you're not old enough. Or the curfews, like we were sending out a little bit longer, but she had to be home by a certain time frame because she was 16. You know?
Yeah, that was the worst part. But in terms of going places, like I was always out and about. I mean, the only time that it really got bad was in college, right?
Yeah.
So I had to myself be a little bit more cognizant of where I was and where I was trying to go. I mean, it didn't stop me from getting a fake ID so I could go to the clubs with my friends. But I mean, I just had to be aware of things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. She casually says that. I still got it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still have my fun, right?
Yeah.
That's why you go to college.
Exactly. Besides the whole education thing, is definitely
Oh
possible.
yeah, no, yeah, fun trumped everything
Yeah.
at that time in life. It's
It
fun.
does. That's true. Before we go, can you tell us what your current? I know we talked about it a little bit, but kind of tell us a little bit more about what you're working on and what's coming up next for you.
Oh yeah. So I guess I'll go ahead and just break it here, right?
Mhm.
So I am currently working on a book for V. Keelan and Penelope Ward's Cocky Hero Club. So I'm writing a book called Charming Hotshot. And it takes place in one of my favorite cities, Miami, Florida.
Nice.
Mhm.
Say that because I was born and raised there.
Oh, I love Miami. I'm going to Miami.
Yeah, when?
In July.
Good.
Ooh,
Okay.
yeah.
Good time to go. Just be careful with the hurricane.
Yeah.
Cool. So the Charming Hot Shots is coming out.
Yeah.
You're writing it, you said, right?
I'm writing it, and it has to go through, of course, a quality review process from the Cocky Hero Club group. So I don't have a date, but I'm targeting end of summer to have it all turned in. So I'm really excited about this book.
Okay. So you have that project, and I know you're writing that novella. Is that finished already? That's coming out
That
May 18th. Yep.
Yeah, it's finished. Just uploaded. It's ready to go.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Anything else that you're working on, or are you still plotting things?
I'm always plotting things. It's just kind of a running thing. It's something will come up and it's like, that's a Christmas story. So yeah, I'm constantly plotting.
Oh, well, you keep us in the loop. I know that you have been great at social media and telling us what's going on, because we love, like I said, adding this information to our calendars, and just and we're also the ones that will bust out with, so hey, how's that going? Because we'll ask. But thank you for sharing that, and I'm looking forward to that Cocky Hero book, Charming Hot Shots.
Charming Hot Shots.
Takes care of Miami, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you have to let us know more about that later when you can, because I don't want to get you in trouble either with the people from that. Yeah. But hey, only fun can happen in that city, that's for sure. Well, thank you, Michelle, for being my guest for this year's Audiobook Lovin Series.
Thank you for having me, Viviana. I've had such a great time. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you. And everyone, thank you for hanging out with us. And we hope you've enjoyed this episode and the series. And until next time, happy listenings.
Bye.
The Audiobook Lovin podcast has special Patreon incentives. Join today to receive early access to podcast episodes, exclusive content with our guests, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Series, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. We hope you have enjoyed this episode as well as the series. We've included audio samples of our guests' work within the post for you to check out. Please make sure to visit the main page, link within the post, to learn more about the series, the authors, and the narrators. Please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to this series if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you've enjoyed this program.